you to send them a rent roll. Would you be able to do this in under 1 minute? If not, stay tuned. I'm about to teach you how. I'm Laurie from Hudson Valley Bookkeeping. We specialize in commercial real estate bookkeeping and QuickBooks coaching. All right, let's get started. Okay, let's talk about tracking rental income in your QuickBooks and some key concepts you should understand before you start. Now, one thing I would say, especially if you're a real estate investor that is heavily into spreadsheets, you have the concept of what you're trying to achieve in your QuickBooks. So what you do before you start adding transactions and posting is really important. We're basically building a foundation so that you can run reports years later that have a lot of meaning. So with that said, I've seen some not very good files where all of the income is just tracked to rental income. Now, if you have a single family one or a single tenant in commercial real estate, that's fine. It won't matter because you know it's only for that one unit. But if you have an apartment building or you have a commercial building with 3, 5, 10, I don't care how many tenants, you want to be tracking those rents individually. And if you create your chart of accounts correctly, where you're tracking them individually, you are thus then creating a rent roll. So I'm going to show you right now how to build that. All right. Okay. So how do you do such a thing? Now, let me just talk more. If you're going to have multiple properties in your QuickBooks, then you should do it by address. So I just like the address no matter what, and then I do the units as a sub. Okay, so we're going to say our address is 1500 Route 52. It's income, and it's a primary income. And then just choose your detail type as service fee. Now, we're not going to make this is considered a parent account. The other rental incomes will be sub accounts. So then you go back up, click new. Now I would also, depending on how many units you have and what you're tracking, put something in there so it delineates, because you could, there are certain times when you will have multiple buildings within one LLC. For instance, I've had clients that have a large apartment complex and there's maybe 4 buildings and they're all owned by that LLC. So thus those 4 buildings should have their own parent account, and then every unit below would be the units within that building. So that would be a key piece to figuring out how you want to track your income. So think about it like that. And also try and build your QuickBooks to think about, what would a banker want to see if I wanted to refinance? What would a buyer want to see if they wanted to purchase my property? These are things you want to build correctly now. It'll save you so much time later. You won't have to try and make it in Excel. Okay, so now we have received our rent on multiple days from different people, right? I'm going to switch. I don't like this. I like hopefully you can do this too. I like the older version. I try not to be that kind of bookkeeper. Okay, so now here we have, there's this memo in here, Sally Field, that's the tenant name, Unit B. So we could add it from here as long as it says tenant. So then we'll say Sally Field. Now, if you post your deposit through this, you will not have any tenant history. So I'm going to post it this way and I'm going to show you, but this is really more about tracking tenant income, but I'll show you another way if you don't like this. But then you cannot, this deposit will not be in the tenant history. That just depends on if you need that or not. So we have Sally, and now we need to pick unit B. So we can type in B. We don't want the parent. Unit B, Route 52. That's the one we want. Okay. And we click add. We have Bob Smith. So we can add that on the fly. It's kind of easier to not do it on the fly, but and he is Unit A. Unit A, Route 52. Okay, so now we've added our transactions. Let's run a profit and loss for January and see what it shows. Okay, so now you can see that we have 1 month posted and you can track your income, per unit, because after you've posted a year, you'll have what's called a rent roll where you can have 12 months side by side. Okay, so as you can see here, we have everybody's deposit showing up the same, right? Now, let me just show you if I go and I just make it a bulk deposit. We won't do it through the bank feed window. I'm going to go ahead and post a couple months so you can see how it looks and how you would track and what you're looking for. So let's just look at what I'm talking about when I say rent roll. So we're going to say profit and loss by month, and I've futured this out into 2026. So I think I did it through May or June. Okay, so I did it through May. So if you notice, I have full occupancy, or everybody's paying January, February, March. Now, I see a hole here in April, and that is for Unit B. So a lot of times when I see a hole in my rent roll, I will ask my client, is it vacant? What's going on? Or someone didn't pay, right? Because a lot of people they don't all track their receivable inside the QuickBooks, because you might be using some outside rent collection software, which is they're paying online, it's posting, it's showing it's been paid, which is fine. So then all you really need to do is post the deposits here, right? So, but if I have an empty zone, I need to go and look at why. So if I look here in March, I see that Sally paid the rent. And then if I go to May, now it's Jane. So that would be an obvious reason, right? Sometimes almost always, if someone's moving out of an apartment or even a commercial space, you're not going to have an exact, rarely does one move in as quickly as one moves out. And then here, I just have nothing. So this would be a big red flag that something's wrong. Now, most of my clients always know who didn't pay. I mean, they are on top of that up to the 10th, and we're sending out reminders and so forth. But in this case, this is a vacancy, right? So no, you got a vacancy here and you have a vacancy there. This is what we're talking about with rent roll, because we're looking for occupancy. We're looking for, do we have a problem? And then what we'd also be watching for is when is the rent going up. So if you start running these, and they call it also a T12, a trailing 12, where you're just watching your last 12 months. If the rent isn't ever going up, that's another big red flag that perhaps you forgot to institute your increase, or maybe you're really making the big mistake and just not increasing people because you're afraid they're going to leave. That's just crazy. You have to consistently increase your rents to keep up. Otherwise, you're going to be between inflation and, property taxes, insurance going up. Your rent also needs to go up. So this is one of the easiest ways to track rent. Now, even if you were going to create invoices and then you would just create your items to link to each one of these income codes, and I will create a short video about that. I hope this was helpful. If you are interested in QuickBooks coaching, I offer that, and please post any comments and or video requests. All right, have a great day.